Good evening, everyone. I hope you liked my gradual turning down of the music there. That's something we're really working on. I really like the idea of that transition from music to noise by my mouth. So I'm really excited to talk about all this stuff tonight. Again, I forgot to start 5 minutes early because I had too much going on, but I have a bunch of good stories to talk to you guys about. Probably the biggest breaking news coming out today was about the airlines being swamped by system problems that apparently Pete Buttigieg, Joe Biden's diversity hire, was partly responsible for because he was trying to make the system that they used to make all those flights happen more inclusive. So if this sounds like a fun story to me, but that's not what we're going to start out with today. Today we're going to start out with the economy, and we're going to start with how the right treats people who are struggling with inflation, because I have a lot of words for how the right views people who have a hard time dealing with the rising cost of living. I don't like the trend that I'm seeing. I think that it's very uncharitable to people, and we're losing our opportunity to point out that these horrible prices, this horrible inflation is all because of stuff the left has done. We could easily make the case that, hey, look at the spell between 2016 and 2020. Wasn't that great? Look at it now. See how much better it was then than now? No, what the right is choosing to do is slam people for being irresponsible, for not being able to afford the stuff that they used to buy. So I'm actually going to read an essay from myself. I hope you guys don't mind. I wrote it up because I thought it was really an interesting topic, and we're going to watch the video that I based it on. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Let's go. This article I titled, "She Shouldn't Be Wearing That." Here, let's make sure you guys can see everything. There we go. And my subtitle was, "Blaming Ordinary People for Living Average Lives in an Economic Downturn Prevents Changing Minds About Policy." I think that's a pretty good summary of what I say here. And I start with a personal story because I kind of find the personal angle kind of disarming. I find it charming, and I had a very personal example from just the other day, and you can attest. Goodbye, dear. Yesterday, Mr. Sour Patch and I took a break from work to make a special trip to the store and get out of the house. As you guys may know, we work from home, so we don't get out as often as we used to, which is great. I love not commuting, but it's really important to kind of make sure that you're staying sane and seeing the world outside every now and then. Mr. Patch wanted one thing and one thing only: Code Red Mountain Dew. It's one of his relatively rare treats, and I certainly won't begrudge him a treat. I just don't drink any myself. Maybe that's why he likes them. As the box skimmed the barcode reader and the self-check register announced the price, I was floored. This mundane box of sugary water was $10. For reference, I recall a year or two ago when a 12-pack of anything, sparkling water, V8, etc., went for about $4 to $6. I was stunned. On the way home, I was definitely spitting some fire in the car. It seems unfair that we finally have our acts together. We both have good projective jobs we're grateful for, and the economy looks like this. I said, I cannot imagine how people who make $50,000 a year feel right now, because I remember what it was like to be poor. I left home when I was 18, started working immediately, and worked my way up to earning a glorious sum of $17,000 a year. I moved home with my parents to save on rent. I bought nothing, mooched off my parents' eggs, coffee, and leftovers. I drove a garbage can car. I vividly recall spending my 20s dirt floor poor and with no social life, thinking about whether I would ever achieve my conservative American dream. Now, I think this dream is further from people my age and younger than it ever has been before, and my heart goes out to them. In this economy, we have the perfect basis to argue for conservative fiscal policies and focus on life at home in the U.S. Inflation affects everyone, no matter how much they make. I like the idea of reaching out to the ordinary, everyday person whose eyes are bugging out in the soda aisle to discuss what put us in this predicament. By the way, this is from my Substack, lydialeiterman.substack.com. But it seems that many on the right do not share my memory of being broke or my view that the boomer American dream is increasingly ephemeral in a very real way that people are not responsible for. I'll give an example video I came across today on Twitter. We're going to watch this video, and then I'll tell you guys what people were saying. This is from an account called Finance Els, at Terrible Finance on Twitter. I'm not familiar with this account, but he says $120,000 combined household income and can barely afford groceries, ... Let's hear what she has to say. I might have to turn this up some more. Let me make sure. before we get started. There we go. All right.
Y'all, tell me why. Just why am I still living paycheck to paycheck? Why? My job pays like a decent amount of money, like very median, very average, but like I should be able to live on this. This is a good salary. Not anymore, bitch. Not anymore. Like, I've started to dread going to the grocery store to buy fucking tinfoil because off-brand, weak-ass tinfoil is like $10. I saw an 18-pack of eggs for $13. I walked in to the Walmart like a few days ago. I bought standard necessities, Ziploc bags, tinfoil, eggs, some fucking lentil pasta because I can't eat the real stuff and that has good protein in it, a singular pound of ground beef, milk, eggs, cheese. Tell me why I walked out of there having spent $70. 70. My partner and I make $120,000 combined. $120,000. That's good. That should be okay. Like, we should be set. Took a lot of work and effort and resume building and all the good stuff to get here. Why are we both living paycheck to fucking paycheck? This is not sustainable. How are people going to find a place to live? How are we supposed to continue to eat? Like, forget about me because we're still living. We're kind of making it. Like, it's not as horrible as it could be. But what about these young kids trying to start a life, trying to get out of their parents' house and be independent adults, and they can't. They can't. Paying for college has become a joke. Requirements for...
Okay, I think you guys get the point. I completely understand where she's coming from because I said something really similar after we left the store yesterday, and Andy and I make solid money. Like I said, we're doing better than we ever have before. And for what? For this. It does not seem fair. But let's read on what the right wing is saying. This woman is incredibly frustrated because she's been trying to live her life as her parents lived theirs. She hasn't done anything especially unusual for a woman her age. She probably bought a car with a loan and spends money on her hair, makeup, nails, jewelry, etc. Fine. These are things boomers could easily do on much smaller salaries 30 to 40 years ago. Excuse me. Things that millennials did without much trouble until just a few years ago. Everyone did it. For better or for worse. I know Americans could certainly do better with financial education and responsibility, trust me. Unfortunately, the majority of comments on this video are deriding her for her assumed lifestyle. You need a budget. How irresponsible. Well, that's what you get for driving an expensive car. We have no idea what kind of car she drives. We have no idea how she budgets. All she's observing is that prices have gone up. And she is not wrong. I recognize that this woman probably does need a budget. God knows most of us do. But I can't help feeling that the derisive, mocking, disparaging comments are missing the point. Someone is struggling financially and raising very real concerns about inflation affecting groceries. We're missing an opportunity. The chance to practice compassion and then remind her how much more affordable life was under conservative leadership. Because at the end of the day, who do her money habits affect? They affect her and her partner, not Twitter commenters, not the American right-wing movement. It's no one's business but her own. Her ostensible lackluster budgeting is only causing her a headache, and her spending habits are completely independent of her observation about inflation, which is just as valid as anyone else's. I was a little surprised by the comments on this video. The right wing usually correctly assigns the blame for economic woes to the left, but that anger toward the government vanishes when the person in front of them looks like they might have made some bad financial decisions. And literally nothing she said in there gave any indication that she voted for Joe Biden, that she bought an expensive car, that she spends a bunch of money on her nails, that she spends a lot on her hair. We don't know any of this. For all we know, she does her nails at home. She gets her hair cut at a discount place. Sure, she has tattoos, but in this day and age, who doesn't? Admittedly, people in the comments did jump to the assumption that this woman voted for Joe Biden, a claim none of them can back up based on this video. I suspect a fixation on responsibility as the way to solve all the world's problems, a pull yourself up by the bootstraps boomer mentality, and a pervasive sense of smug superiority may be coloring our dialogue here. We aren't better than someone else because we put our green pieces of paper in a different envelope than they do. We are all struggling more than we were 3 years ago at the end of the day, and it's because of left-wing policies, period. Do lacking budgets exacerbate that? Sure. But it is not entirely this woman's fault that she's having a hard time buying groceries right now, especially if this is a new phenomenon. A new difficulty buying groceries says that the economy is the factor that has changed, not her spending habits. And that opens the door to telling her the good news about conservative fiscal policy. I am willing to bet that a sufficiently sympathetic, knowledgeable person could easily change who she votes for by talking to her when she's upset like this about the skyrocketing cost of living. But for the Twitter mob right, it seems like it's more important to dunk. Let me tell you, it is not more important to win if it means the person you're dunking on will be hurt, embarrassed, and angered by your response. Judgmental comments like, you make plenty of money, look at you spending money on ordinary things like hair and nails, stop complaining and budget, it's not that bad, will just make her defensive, and she'll never be forced to consider that if she voted for left-wing policies, this is the natural outcome of that choice. Besides, things really have gotten tangibly more expensive. She is not crazy for noticing it. We miss a golden opportunity by being judgmental when people complain about the economy. The left deftly picks up on and uses emotion, especially negative emotion, to their own political ends, and we could too if we could just stop judging people, show some empathy, and tell them that yes, it is hard, but conservative policies can help. Just look at the span of 2016 to 2020. Those numbers did not lie. Instead, we're on social media trying to dunk on the assumed lib and pretending we're better than they are because we budget better, as if inflation doesn't still affect every one of us, budget or not. The mocking stereotype of a compassionate conservative unfortunately appears to be true, but we can beat the stereotype. So there was a comment here that I really wanted to read you guys, and it's from a lady named Denise. No, it's from Deborah. Okay. My husband and I have been married for over 33 years. We own our own home. We've never been financially strapped until Biden economics. We are now living month to month and barely making it, and my husband is a former professional NFL player. Of course, he played in the 50s and 60s, but he gets 2 pensions from the NFL, a regular one and a Legends pension. I am not sure we will be able to exist for another year. This is BS. Very, very real problems that people are facing. And what I'm seeing on Twitter, I know Twitter is terrible, and I would never use it to judge character, but it does make it easier for people to say what they're really thinking. I have such an issue with just jumping on judging this lady instead of being like, hey, you know when it wasn't this bad? When the Republicans were in charge. Hey, what do you know about that? And you could ask her what she thought about that. Who she voted for, who's planning on voting for next year. You might be surprised, but I don't know. All this judgmental stuff I don't like. I think I've summarized it pretty well, what people were saying in the comments. I just have such an issue with that because, Cardi B, I thought I put this in my article. Cardi B was talking about this, and she's very, very wealthy. She's just always kept track of her money. And so she points out that everything's getting more expensive. She wanted to make sure that the person who buys her groceries wasn't taking advantage of her. So she went to the grocery store and she's like, holy cow, to put it in family-friendly terms. I try. They don't, but I do. Stuff really is more expensive. It's like 3 times more expensive. In fact, look at this. Look at this. This is crazy. Shoppers are left shell-shocked. Ha ha ha. As egg prices more than double to the national average of $3.59 for a dozen after bird flu outbreak wipes out 43 million laying hens. Groceries are up 12% overall from last year. She's not joking. Like, she raises the point of eggs being so much more expensive than they were. And it is genuinely discouraging to go to the grocery store and spend like a bundle of money that you weren't really expecting to spend when you just needed a few things. It is disheartening. And this is part of the issue I have with the conservative right saying, oh, well, you just need to work harder. You need to get ahead faster. First of all, they require a a college degree for everything, which means you're going to have college degree, which means you're going to have student loan debt, which means you're already going to be at a disadvantage. It's going to be nearly impossible for you to buy a home, no matter how you save your money. And then inflation is stealing it out from under you left, right, and center. To be fair, inflation probably least affects people who took out these gigantic loans because it reduces the amount that they owe. But that's a separate issue. And then this, 1 in 4 Americans has been putting off having kids and other life plans over fears of climate change, and more than half say we should live more frugally. This is stressful. And I know it's not like the Great Depression. I know it's not like the Stone Age. I know it's not like the frontier days, but it's still hard. It's a different kind of hard. It's a technological hard, and it's psychological. And it's something that I think we would do really well to take into account as we try to reach out to people who are, moderates and people who could be convinced to vote kind of more right-wing than they already do. Judging them is not going to cut it. People don't like that, especially women don't like being judged, and they prefer empathy. It's very important to speak to ladies with a great dose of empathy and with a lot of compassion. Don't ask me why. It's just important to us. It alters everything about the message that we're hearing. Yeah, somebody says, yeah, like with Cardi B. Exactly. All right, Andy's in the chat spreading libertarian nonsense. I'm just kidding. As a kid, I would see single moms and see they were faced with a choice. But a 3-liter soda for 99 cents that will give her kids multiple drinks, or real juice for $6 will be one and done. Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of these really sugary foods are really cheap. And somebody was in my comments saying, oh, it's cheaper to eat healthy. No, it's not. It's not. It's categorically not. Not only is it not cheaper to eat healthier, it involves a great deal more time, which is also valuable. You could be working. Your time is worth some amount of money. And it requires careful attention to ingredients and all this stuff. They don't make it easy to eat healthy, and they certainly don't make it super affordable. She spends $70 on groceries and is living paycheck to paycheck on a $120,000 salary. Something's not adding up. Okay, so here's what happens with salaries. They get taxed, okay? And especially if you have other expenses like medical bills. You might owe taxes like I did last year for the first time ever. Of course, you have to pay rent. You got to buy groceries. You got to buy all these different things. You need health insurance. You need dental insurance. You need to go to the doctor's office. You need to go to the dentist's office. If you have a pet costs money. If you are lucky enough to have a home, you need to pay for the upkeep of your home. You need to pay for your car. You pay for your car maintenance. You pay for your maybe car loan if you have one. And then, yes, you pay for small frivolities like maybe doing your fingernails or getting your hair done or jewelry or whatever it is. Right, I spend like $300 to $400 every week on groceries now. It is insane. What are the popular TikTok creators complaining about? It could be just a trend. You're not in dire straits. You are in dire need for attention. Yeah, well, TikTok's a little different. But I do like that it gives people the opportunity to get their message out there, because this is a conversation that I think we need to have. And especially for the right wing, we need to not be judging people. Yes, you need a budget. Yes, you might be spending your money frivolously. We don't know. We do not know what this woman has to spend her money on. She could have student loan debt. All of these different factors could be playing a role. We simply don't know, especially if she has children. Children are a huge sink for money. So $120,000 does not go as far as you thought it did in the 1990s. And someone else mentioned in my comments that $120,000 in a state like New York or California is more like $50,000 in West Virginia. And I think that's entirely fair and accurate and needs to be said too. We don't even know what state she's in. We don't know what percentage of state taxes they take out from her paycheck. So sorry, Lids, but this is garbage. See, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. We need to be compassionate. We need to think about these issues that people are facing, because it doesn't matter what we think of them. It doesn't matter how harshly we judge them. The fact is that this is the reality that they're facing. And we need to meet them where we are, because if we don't, we will never win again. I hope you enjoy losing if you think this is garbage. Churches often have budgeting classes for free. Yes, and Dave Ramsey is a wonderful source of information. But like I said in my article, she's trying to live like she did before the economy became this way. And I think that's really the problem. It's a great place to start if you don't have a financial plan. Yeah, for sure. I've noticed that people who say partner instead of husband or fiance end up being more liberal, but I don't have any evidence of this. Just something I noticed. Yeah, that's fair. She might be gay. We don't know. Could be a lady. I like Ramsey, but I have a hard time finding a church to donate to that are willing to put it toward the communities rather than the new carpet. Fair. Wake Up Waverly says, I've been laid off for a month now and have had to go back to doing Dollar General to get food, and the food feels like it rots you. When milk went over $5, I knew it was going to get rough. Yeah, man, it's no joke. It doesn't particularly matter if it's the right wing saying this or not. Whoever's saying it is missing the point. Yeah, I agree. People don't need to be judged. Things are hard out there for everyone. Whoever you voted for, things are tight. Groceries are more expensive. You cannot argue with that. And you need to be in a position where you're saying, all right, I understand where you're coming from. Let's look at your budget, tighten you up, getting you flying right. There are ways to approach people that make them more likely to listen to your point of view, and telling them that they're being horrible and irresponsible is not the way to do that. Wow, I spent way longer on this than I wanted to. But yeah, Cardi B totally mentioned that for sure. I think it's great. I don't play the football team style politics. It doesn't matter to me what team someone's supposed to be on. I judge people based on their individual actions. Yeah, of course, for sure. Well, pointing these things out is not judging. The way these things were said was very judgmental, to the point that I was like genuinely upset for this lady because she was sharing a very real concern that she has. And all people were doing on the right was just literally just mocking her and making fun of her. And I ended up feeling bad for her and ultimately taking her side, which is really not what you want it to happen. So he says she's probably in California, possibly. Waffles says, hey bro, hey, how's it going? Tried being crunchy in 2021. Bank account took a huge hit and I regret it. Now I try and be healthier, but I don't worry about every little thing. It's expensive still, but less stressful. Yeah, for sure. You got to find a balance. I know you love me, but don't just skip everyone but me when you're reading. I just see a lot from you, my dear. You have a lot of comments in here. Thank you for commenting, though. I appreciate that. All right, let's look at what Pete Buttigieg has been up to. Our fearless diversity hire. Pilots slam ridiculous decision to ground all U.S. flights for the first time since 9/11 after NotAm crashed and overwhelmed the antiquated backup for phoning for updates. All right, I'm way out of my depth here. I have no idea how the FAA works, but let's read a little bit. The FAA blamed the ground stop on the failure of its digital NotAm system. But pilots and airspace experts say that such a glitch shouldn't cause such chaos. They tell Daily Mail that NotAm system is non-vital and there are backups. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg is yet to explain the FAA's decision. Well, speaking of Pete, Pete Buttigieg oversaw a rebranding of faulting NotAm system to make it more inclusive by referring to air missions instead of airmen in 2021, and it was undergoing a 2-phase modernization when it crashed. Is anyone else surprised? Because I'm not at all. Sam Brinton and Pete Buttigieg are exactly what happens when you hire for diversity, not talent. This is exactly the case, and this is in no way surprising to me. In fact, I'm surprised it hasn't happened more. I'm surprised Rachel Levine hasn't done something like this. And Karine Jean-Pierre, oh goodness, she's just not good at her job, and she does not seem to enjoy it. But she gets, does she get a feature in today's show? I don't think so. In December 2021, NotAMS was rebranded to stand for Notice to Air Missions. For decades beforehand, it had stood for Notice to Airmen. Pete's FAA said that renaming it made it more inclusive for all pilots. The system is also undergoing modernization that remains ongoing. The FAA claims the modernization will make the process. I think they were supposed to say more there, but I can't see anything. After taking office in 2021, Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg oversaw a rebranding of the FAA system that failed today and delayed thousands of flights so that it would be more inclusive. The system previously stood for Notices to Airmen, this we know. It was a decision that they said ensured that the name was inclusive of all aviators and missions. Oh, that's nice. In addition to the name change, the system was undergoing modernization. It remains unclear whether the modernization or any of the changes played a role in the oversight outage that led to the FAA to ground all flights in the U.S. on Wednesday morning, a drastic measure that hasn't been seen since 9/11. The FAA's website describes the modernization as ongoing. In a December 22nd post, the FAA said the transition would be carried out in 2 phases. I'm so glad that they did what they could to make this more inclusive. I'm so glad this was their top priority going into this crazy time of air travel nonsense. I don't know if you guys remember this, but Pete Buttigieg was just nowhere to be seen for like 6 months following the birth of his surrogate children. And this was because he was on paternity leave. So he didn't tell anyone. No one knew where he was. And everything functioned more or less the same. So I have to agree with Matt Walsh and say that I don't think the secretary is necessary at all. We should probably just get rid of it. That's just my 2 cents. But I just want to update you guys on that and say that it was kind of hilarious that he was trying to make it so much more diverse and inclusive right before it crashed. Not saying there's a connection, just really effing funny. All right, guys, they're coming for our gas stoves, and I, for one, am not okay with it. This is the first time in my adult life that I've actually had access to a gas stove, and I love it. We had one when we were growing up, and I really thought it was just the best. I never, ever wanted an electric stove, ever. Let's be real, too. Electric stoves are fueled by fossil fuels. If you're wanting to go green, electric is not the way to go. Let's read this from Time. What the potential ban on gas stoves means if you have one. A federal agency is considering a ban on gas stoves amid rising concern about the health risks associated with indoor air pollution from the appliances, particularly among children. Everyone was mocking AOC earlier today because she was saying that it actually affects your brain function, and everyone was pointing out that she has one, and everyone's like, oh, you must have been raised in a home with a gas stove, huh? The U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission, which can issue mandatory standards or ban consumer products if no feasible standard would adequately protect the public, plans to take actions to address the gas pollution that has been linked to health and respiratory problems. Okay, so how did we link it to those health and respiratory problems? I'm concerned that this was a case of the science having its foregone conclusion and simply jimmying with the information to make sure that it fit. I'd be surprised if that wasn't the case. Let's see what they say at the end of this article, because I have good news right after this. A lot of chefs will say gas is king because that's how we've always done it, but we only started cooking with gas the last 100 or so years, so if you're really concerned with tradition, you'd be cooking on coal or wood, not gas. When it comes down to it, chefs are afraid of change. Well, gas is fantastic. It's fire, but it's immediate, so it's way better in that regard. But let's see what's actually going on here. Biden is not in favor of ban on gas stoves, the White House says. That is good news. I'm very happy to hear that. I hope that continues to be the case moving forward because I love my gas stove and will be incredibly sad if it's ever taken from me. I'm so grateful that I have it now. The White House on Wednesday asserted that the president does not support a ban on gas stoves after a federal consumer safety official suggested that such a proposal was on the table. The White House response follows a recent Bloomberg interview with Biden-appointed U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission Victor Trumka Jr., who claimed the household appliance has a hidden hazard and said that any option is on the table in relation to regulating them. Okay, well, sounds like he's full of nonsense, and hopefully this administration will continue to say no to that, and hopefully they'll come up with all of the applicable studies and see if it's really true that this is actually harming people, especially children. Oh, this one's fun. Okay, here we go. I know you guys remember the classified documents that they found recently. Well, actually, they found them right before the midterm elections, but for some reason, oh my gosh, it must have slipped their mind. For some reason, it didn't come out until just now, long after the midterms. Whew, thank goodness, but wow, what a crazy coincidence. Biden aides discover more classified documents at second location. The location of the second batch, as well as the number and nature of the documents, remains unclear. Aides to President Joe Biden have reportedly discovered a second batch of classified documents stored at a separate location, according to NBC News, which cited a person familiar with the matter, as indeed they always do. Reports emerged earlier this week that a lawyer clearing out Biden's office at the Penn Biden Center in Washington had discovered a set of classified documents which reportedly included intelligence on Ukraine, Iran, and the UK. The documents were discovered in November 2nd, to be precise, and handed over to the government. The National Archives has asked the Department of Justice to investigate the matter. The location of the second batch, as well as the number and nature of the documents, remains unclear. You guys remember when Hillary Clinton did this with her files that she ended up ultimately destroying and bleach bitting from her devices? She had aides smashing them with hammers. She was so anxious to make sure that they never got out. Yeah, Pepperidge Farm remembers. Do you guys remember when they sent the FBI to Donald Trump's place of residence to raid him for classified documents that turned out to be essentially nothing, just mementos that he wanted to keep from the White House, while he was the president and could declassify these documents, unlike Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden at the time. Pepperidge Farm remembers. Good times. Good stuff. Totally not a double standards. Absolutely insane to me. Really annoying to read about. But hopefully, I know that with the assistance of our relentless news media, so I'm trying to say this with a straight face, with our watchdogs in the news media on our side, I just know that the Democratic Party will be held fully to account over this nonsense. Oh, I wanted to look this up too. Biden Penn Center Chinese Funding Company. The name of this company. Oh boy, it looks like the results below are changing quickly. Wow, check the source. Are they trusted on this topic? I'm so glad we got this example because I love this result. This result means they're not being able to twist the narrative quickly enough to keep it covered. Let's see here. Oh, from the New York Post. Penn Biden Center, where classified papers were found, is a, quote, dark money nightmare. Oh, let's read more. The Ivy League think tank where lawyers found classified materials linked to the Obama White House is a patronage mill for the Biden administration, raising suspicions among critics that its establishment attracted tens of millions in donations from, drumroll please, anonymous Chinese donors. That's crazy. That's so crazy. I never would have imagined that China would have been working with the Bidens to do something insanely corrupt and curry political favor. I'm as shocked as you are. The Department of Justice is currently probing how a small number of classified documents from President Biden's year as vice president ended up in the Washington, D.C. think tank. Let's see. A second batch of papers were found at an additional location. It was reported Wednesday. The Penn Biden Center is a dark money revolving door nightmare where foreign competitors like China donated millions of dollars to the university so that they could have access to future high-ranking officials, said Tom Anderson, director of the Government Integrity Project at the Virginia-based National Legal and Policy Center. The University of Pennsylvania raked in a total of $54.6 million from 2014 through June 2019 in donations from China, including $23.1 million in anonymous gifts starting in 2016, when Trump was president. How interesting. According to public records. Most of the anonymous donations came after the university officially announced in February 2017 that it would create the academic center named for Biden, whose term as vice president under Obama had just ended. In addition to leading the think tank, Biden was named a professor at the school. Goodness gracious, why? The Ivy League institution received $15.8 million in anonymous Chinese gifts in 2017 and won $14.5 million donation in May 2018, 3 months after the center opened, records show. The Penn Biden Center has never solicited or received any gifts from any Chinese or other foreign entity, blah, 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 blah. But you can see the records, so they were coming, whether or not Biden solicited them. In fact, the university has never solicited any gifts for the center. Interesting phrasing. No, we never solicited those things. Oh, they were given to us. Yeah, we sure didn't say no, but we never solicited them. In fact, the university has never solicited since its inception in 2017. There have been 3 unsolicited gifts from 2 donors, which combined to total $1,100. Both donors are Americans. 100% of the budget for the Penn Biden Center comes from university funds. BS. The center does not list any of its fellows or administrators on its website. Interesting. It does not have separate financial filings. Fascinating. It operates under the auspices of the University of Pennsylvania with a mission of engaging, quote, fellow citizens in shaping this world while ensuring that gains of global engagement are widely shared. That literally means nothing at all. So this is exactly what I would expect from one of these fake fronts that places like the Clinton Foundation made popular, where you just go in and you use the fact that you are in a politically profitable position to curry favor with other countries and say, hey, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. And I'm not saying you have to give money to this fake foundation that I just made with the University of Pennsylvania. But if you did, that'd be cool. I would sure appreciate that. I have this noble goal of engaging fellow citizens in shaping this world while ensuring the gains of global engagement are widely shared. What does that even mean? What does that mean? Ensuring the gains of global engagement are widely shared. Holy cow. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. Utter garbage. I am not at all surprised. I saw the names of one of the Chinese companies that supposedly gave money to this organization that they put together for Biden, and it was insane. It was like the Nice Happy Chinese Fund. And I was like, wow, they're really not even trying very hard to hide who they are or what they're doing. My goodness gracious. Let's see what you guys think about that. I thought it was fun. Waffles. Yeah, Waffles is here. Read more from me. It's Bree. Don't read this. Why not? Why not, Waffles? Why shouldn't I read this? I know there's a lot of whatever about the poke, but maybe if we let people who can't take care of themselves destroy themselves, then it's no longer a problem. I'm a bit black-pilled today. Don't be black-pilled. There's always a reason to hope, even if sometimes it seems more difficult than other times. The whole government is falling apart, 100%. Doesn't strike me as a bad thing at this point. Ultra-crepidarianism makes me think this article has great expertise. Interesting. I'm not familiar with that. I've been having sleep issues, so I slept late this morning and woke up to this chaos and was literally like, what the heck happened now, honestly? Andy says, all super chats tonight will be spent irresponsibly on unneeded luxury items. Okay, if you say so. That's the way to do it. Yeah, for sure. KJP is the worst press secretary of all time, which is impressive due to the uselessness of the position. For sure. So she seems like she really hates her job to the point where I actually feel really bad for her. She's just like aggressively bad at it. It still seems so fishy. Like I bet there's more to it than this. Maybe Buttigieg is the fall guy. Maybe it's just an issue with the way things are run. Not am.exe, not found, 100%. Say what you want about Saki, but she was amazing at her job. She really was. She could really spin it. Get rid of the whole department, 100%. Be well all. Family time for us here. See y'all next time. Thanks so much for joining us, Lectern Guy. We appreciate it. Lids is so mad that we might lose her stove. I am so mad. I am incensed about this. You could cook a dinner on my head. I'm so furious about what's going on. It's crazy. I'm scared of gas stoves. They always puff fire at me. I hate electric stoves because they suck. I personally can't win. You just got to get used to gas stoves. Got to use the clicker relatively quickly, and you get used to it. It just takes a little time. Come and get it, honestly. Propane camping stove for the win. Hey, that's a good idea. I'm not just shooting my mouth. I'm homeless and on food stamps. I know what I'm talking about. It's better to eat healthy than to buy cheap food. Yeah, I think you're right. In the long run, it's way better to eat healthy than it is to just buy cheap food. But it's hard for people, and people are not sufficiently educated. The other thing I wanted to mention about this poor lady who apparently can't make a budget is that our schools have so clearly failed. This is both a failure of economics in that she's dealing with this inflation, and it's a failure on the part of the schools who don't teach kids anything useful, like, for example, economics, civics, how to make their own budget, how to do any of this stuff, how to pay their own taxes. They get none of this education. All they get is mitochondria as the powerhouse of the cell, which doesn't benefit anyone in the long term, and certainly not when it comes to like living your own life. How about dealing with health insurance? I've been fighting to get my MS medicine for going on 30 months now, and I never expected it to be this insanely difficult. I was convinced that this healthcare system up here in the Great White-ish North would be way better than where we were. But now that I'm engaged in it, it is just hard. And I don't understand everything that is required of me. And they don't really tell you. They throw it out here and there. And they're like, oh, you need to call. You need to do this. You need to get in touch with a pharmacy. You need the referral. You need to make sure the doctor gets you this, this, and this. You need to get your MRI. You need to go to this. It's crazy. These are the kind of things that schools should teach people. And they should have definitely taught this poor lady how to budget, because I know things are tight, would help to have a budget for sure. Second law of thermodynamics says it's more efficient to heat with the fuel in your home. Interesting. The European Union recently made a big deal about securing natural gas for the energy requirements of the winter from European nations. Honestly, why is this even remotely important to our government? No idea. It's like live in the pod, eat the bugs, use the electric stove. If you run out of heating fuel or emergency batteries, you can use a crayon as a candle. Good to know. Good to know. No rumor is true until officially denied. Oh, that's a good policy. Good rule of thumb. Andy says you can use anything as a candle if you burn it. And that's actually a direct kind of quote from Andy on Parks and Rec, who says anything's a toy if you play with it, which is technically correct. I always say anything is edible if you eat it, which is also technically correct. Never limit yourself. The sky's the limit. Natural gas is safe. Hair candle. No, don't use hair for candles. Holy cow, you guys. You can also cook and keep warm by burning. Oh, okay. Burning a politician's possessions. That's true too. Gas stoves are out. Hair candles are in. No, no, no. Hair candles are definitely not in. Thank you, waffles. Don't like that. First $100 super chat gets a dip hair candle. Andy is just making all kinds of promises we can't keep. Because as I said in last stream, when he was making wild promises about dip, his hair is short. So you can't really make anything with it. Are you going to cook our bugs over the... We're going to cook our bugs over the hair candle. Yes, that's the way it's going. I hate this hair candle conversation, says Fear Me It's Brie. I do too. Thanks, Andy, for introducing this to our stream of consciousness. Pepperidge Farm, Family Guy did Pepperidge Farm, the scapegoat. Cockroaches roasting over an open fire. Delicious, says Claus. Goodness gracious. Good work, everyone. Steam Crider has been doing it right the whole time. Former Vice President Biden. Yeah, for sure. I love it. They give you the You Give Me Money for Influence Fund. Yes, that's what it's called. Don't worry, the Clinton Foundation always does the right thing. Lori Lemon says, buy Andy some Mountain Dew. She gave us $10. Thank you very much, Lori. We appreciate it. Andy especially appreciates that. Look at us. This is a great example of a bunch of great people with good heads on our shoulders getting together. We can make real changes in this world if we work together and support each other. That's right. That's how we came up with the idea of hair candles. Good work, everyone. Our finest achievement. Don't get black pilled. Start making a difference. Thanks, Lori. Andy, make us all sound responsible. Meanwhile, I'm eating fudge off a knife. Oh my gosh, you guys are a wild bunch. I appreciate it. The school system designed the feud pyramid to look like a slice of pizza. Oh my gosh, I learned so much in these chats and I appreciate it. That's awesome. I think you could make some crispy bugs in an air fryer. I agree. You know what? You're right. I love our air fryer and I can't wait to use it. Let's get some outrageous promises, man. All right, guys, we have one last thing to talk about today, and I didn't really want to talk about it, but unfortunately I read through everything else too quickly, so here we are. We are going to read about the trans people who are so in fear of their lives that they're considering fleeing the country. This is from Vice, always a great source, and here is our protagonist, Rin Azariel Wilgos. I had to rehearse that before I read it. And Zara Crystal are both considering L-E-A. I'm going to assume they meant leaving the U.S., a country they say is becoming too hostile for trans people like them. Now, I have an interesting point I want to make about this, so let's follow through. Some trans people are preparing to flee the U.S. and seek asylum abroad. Okay, all you need to do is look at the news and see how bad it's going to get. I'm going to stop you right there because there are certain factions of the right who say the exact same thing, and they're very serious about it. They're like, the whole U.S. is going to faction. It's going to factionate. It's going to turn into these different splinters, and China's going to descend. You got to get out of cities, man. This is kind of my Alex Jones impression. It's kind of my just generalized right-wing protagonist, like super incensed about everything that's going on. It's going to get crazy, man. You got to buy your Patriot dirt stuff or whatever. Yeah, okay, calm down. Rin Azariel Wilgos, a 50-year-old transgender, doesn't matter what they are, they're transgender, has been rapidly researching ways to flee the United States. Rin's from the U.S., but with physical attacks against transgender and non-binary people on the rise, citation needed, Vice, and lawmakers targeting transgender people with increasingly draconian legislation that criminalizes their very existence, citation needed, Vice. Come on, man. Wilgos is worried. The national landscape, accompanied by some of Rin's own personal experience, has made a future in the U.S. feel untenable. In March 2020, when Wilgos had just started the transition, Rin was traveling across the state for work when Rin decided to stop at a public bathroom. A man followed Rin inside and pushed Rin up against a wall. I thought he was going to choke me to death, Rin told Vice News. Today, Rin mostly feels safe in Fargo, North Dakota, where Rin lives, but Rin's careful in rural areas. Why? There's nobody out there. And when Rin leaves the state, Rin often doesn't feel safe at all. It's such a pain in the butt. There are like 30 states right now I wouldn't even drive through, Wilgos said. Rin's own experiences and the increasingly hostile national climate inspired Wilgos to start Transport, a budding nonprofit that seeks to help trans people transition, navigate bureaucratic mazes, and ultimately finance their journeys as they flee the country. Wilgos is considering claiming asylum in Iceland, a country Rin visited last summer and considers more accepting and safer than the U.S. And Rin felt like being trans was a non-issue while there. Though there's currently a lack of clarity around whether it's even possible for transgender U.S. citizens to claim asylum elsewhere, and an expert told Vice News it's unlikely, the devolving situation in the U.S. has inspired people like Wilgos to try. All you need to do is look at the news. There's your problem right there. The more you read of the news, the more convinced you are that the world is ending. And when I left Timcast, I set out to try to find common ground between people and try to prove to people that the world is not ending, because I don't believe that it is. I have met enough normal people. I talk to people every time I'm out and about, and I'm looking for ways to see how we can put this back together again, because I don't think it's as crazy as we think it is. I think that's entirely a narrative pushed by the mainstream media and some alternative platforms. Because it's interesting. It gets the clicks, okay? You need people to be kind of desperate. You need that negative emotion to push them to click the buttons and read the pages and buy the things. That's a big thing. I would say it's like it's a free market of fear. And I don't think it's good for our social conversation. It's bad for our national discourse. And it's leading to stuff like this. Like these trans people are terrified, which I don't think is good either, because no one deserves to live their life in fear, no matter how confused you are, how strange you try to make the rest of the world for other people. We're accused of being pedophiles and of grooming children. We're being accused of being a social contagion that makes every child think they are in the queer community. That's the farthest from the truth. Okay. Wilgos first considered leaving the United States entirely in the summer of 2022, shortly after Roe v. Wade was overturned. Wilgos is biologically male and will never, ever, under any circumstances, ever be in a position to even possibly consider needing an abortion. So I just want to clear that up. Rin was on vacation in Iceland when the decision came down, and people who knew Rin as an advocate started calling Rin to express their concerns that the Supreme Court would target LGBTQ rights next. Those concerns were warranted. In his concurring opinion on Roe, Justice Clarence Thomas welcomed legal challenges to marriage equality and other privacy-based rights, prompting the passage of federal marriage protections in December 2022. It was while Rin was fielding these phone calls that Wilgos stumbled on the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees guidelines on refugee status based on sexual and gender orientation. I was like, wait a minute, this is crazy, Wilgos remembered thinking. I can actually declare asylum just because I'm trans? Rin is currently reaching out to LGBTQ organizations in European countries to learn more about the options that exist for Rin and the people Rin hopes to help flee. I'm very unlikely. I am very doubtful that this is going to turn out to be fruitful for Rin Wilgos. I think that this is very much a case of wishful thinking. I don't think you can make the case that transgender people are being actively targeted when a transgender activist the other day complained to a video game company and got a woman fired, not because of anything the woman said or did, but because the woman followed the wrong people on Twitter. This is not a persecuted minority. And if it came down to it, I am sure that anyone could demonstrate that they are clearly in a position of political power. They are enjoying great privileges that they will never admit. She's currently reaching out through Transport. Though Transport doesn't have an official roster of clients yet, they've only just begun working and plan on accepting applications soon. Okay, so this is really nothing. Wilgos added that Wilgos would like to start to accepting applications for clients soon. Hopefully we'll start taking applications toward the end of February and help people get the ball rolling to make the leap across the ocean, Wilgo said, adding that anyone who benefited from transport services will also be asked to support future clients. Oh, that's fair. About 30 people, about 6 locally in and near North Dakota, and others peppered across the U.S. have already reached out to the group since local media first reported on them, including a single gay man who is immigrating to the Netherlands and offered to marry an American so that they'd be able to relocate with him. Wilgo said, okay, well, isn't that immigration fraud? Not sure. Need to look that one up. For now, transport will primarily serve trans people in North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota. But Wilgos said they would either like to expand the group or see similar organizations pop up elsewhere. I really feel like that's enough we need to say. This is really just a pity party for trans afflictions that really largely do not exist. There is certainly discrimination against them, and it's because their activists are frankly crazy, and they act very, very censorious. They act power mad, and they are willing to do pretty much anything up to and including burning people's houses down and physically assaulting them, as you can see with Andy No's reporting, especially in Portland. So I feel like we can close this here and say with great confidence that no, trans people are not a persecuted minority. They have the position of power, and I feel like they know it. I really do. The fact that they can just say the word and get people fired is kind of a dead giveaway that they're really not any kind of persecuted minority. I refuse to accept that. That's such nonsense. My goodness. Anyway, I wanted to read that just to loop you guys in on what's good there. It's total nonsense. All right. Anything is a dildo if you're brave enough. Yeah, that's always been true. I will keep all these promises, says Andy. Let's get some outrageous promises, man. Demographic here is basically poor rural white, low wages, low education across the board. They depend on the local hospital. They're all hooked into the med system here. Government checks and prescriptions. Yeah, it's not good. Anybody who relies on the government to that extent is going to find themselves in a world of hurt. Sailor Mercury says good, leave, which I'm assuming was directed at the trans people who are saying that they're going to leave the U.S. Honestly, if you want to go be an activist across the ocean and not be like threatening to burn people's homes down and trying to put on Drag Queen Story Hour here, more power to ya. Peace out. Anybody else think it's weird that the trans community is looking to go abroad? Yeah, it's very interesting. Somebody else says, bye, Felicia. I do not care if they leave or stay. I have no interest in random people with no influence on my life. Yeah, that's fair. I don't know why there need to be an article about it. Trans literally have the power to get people fired for misgendering. How are they oppressed? Exactly. If you're a trans, should you seek asylum abroad or a dude? Thanks, Andy, for this really interesting question. I have no idea. That's really a good one. Thing is, where will they go? We are one of the most accepting countries. Most of the world would throw them in jail, or I know what you're saying. I know what they do in the Middle East, and I notice that none of these people have shown any interest in going to the Middle East. Interesting. Dude ranch dressing. I love the idea that they're going to some random European country assuming they'll be accepted, and then when they get there and find out literally most of the world hates that kind of stuff. It's true. 100%. Egypt. They should go to Egypt. If they're afraid to go across any state, then they are already in a state of denial. Oh my gosh. Are bad puns just going to be the whole chat now? Thanks so much, Andy. Good work. Banished from humanity, the trans sought refuge in their own promised land. They settled in the cradles of human civilization, and thus a new nation was born. That sounds like a great story. You should write that. Transport. Good grief. Transport. Yeah, seriously, it's not good. I think they are right about how dangerous it is getting here in the States. My wife had me buy a 6-pack of White Claw from a bar, and the white men there made fun of me. It just isn't safe for cis claw. Good work, everyone. Czechoslovakia. It's like going to Wisconsin. Hey, I once got my butt kicked in Wisconsin. Yeah, some of these countries, like from my understanding, Hungary is not nice to people who identify like this. They think it's complete nonsense and they're pushing back against it hard. They do not like George Soros. They do like Viktor Orban. And Viktor Orban is not friends with George Soros. All super chats tonight will go toward buying weapons to prepare for the second Civil War. Thank you, Andy. Oh man, like a jet or maybe a tank? Yes, for sure. There's a leak in the bathroom. I must have misplaced my Trans Am transmission there earlier. Oh goodness, goodness gracious. Oh, there's a leak in the boat. That is my favorite joke from Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 2. I thought that was wonderful. Really great. Compare the numbers of trans attacks compared to another marginalized group from America's history, and the numbers tell the story. Trans are not being targeted. Yes, they have a significantly lower murder rate than almost any other demographic, and there's very little evidence that these people are actually being targeted because they're trans. The fact of the matter, unfortunately, is that trans people tend to live a relatively, what we like to call in the hospital, a high-risk lifestyle. And in the hospital, that meant people who like to do a lot of drugs. People who could not be discharged from the hospital with an IV in their neck because they were going to do hard drugs through it and kill themselves. Like that kind of high-risk lifestyle. That kind of lifestyle results in early death. Like you can't really argue with that. I can't tell you how many kids who were my age or younger, I think I was 26 or 27 at the time, came into the hospital and had been doing drugs for like 12 years. And they were just utterly toasted and they needed valve replacements. Their hearts were entirely burned out. And of course, they were using Medicaid and all that system because you can't really afford that kind of thing when you're a drug addict, but they were relying on the state to keep them alive. And that is that high risk lifestyle. And trans people, unfortunately, tend to live the same way because they have underlying mental health issues, which actually turns out to be a pretty big problem. Most trans people don't want special treatment. Most of them just want to live normal lives as their preferred gender. Yes, that's why I always say my biggest issue with the trans community is the activists. And people like Blair White will tell you that they have absolutely no use for the activists, and the activists actively make their lives worse. Censorious, perfect word. Most people just want to live normal lives, 100%. It's a microscopic minority that's bullied their way into claiming to speak for all queer people, 100%. And don't forget, guys, queer is a political identity. It is not sexual. It is political. And they'll tell you as much. When you identify as queer, it really means something. It's something you need to keep in mind. Go to an Islamic country, see how that works out for you. Yeah, honestly. Punderful chat. Let them all move to Epstein's Island. Hey, that sounds like a pretty nice place, honestly. It's just a phase. Transgenderism shows the USA is growing up as a country. Yeah, growing up in the way that the Roman Empire looked at the end of its tenure as an empire, or because my understanding is that empires tend to last about 200 years. And I don't remember if we're slightly before or slightly after the 200-year mark, but we're certainly approaching it. My father's side of the family is Wisconsinian. I don't know how to pronounce that. Government controls electric faster than gas. I don't know if that's true. What do you mean, those people? Oh, I'm not sure. Drugs and prostitution are extremely common in the LGBTQ community. Exactly. That's high risk. And that results in a lot of accidental death and a lot of suicide and a lot of homicides, unfortunately. So today we covered a bunch of cool stories. We read that annoying essay by that obnoxious essayist, Lydia. We talked about why it's probably better to treat people with compassion when they tell you that they're struggling with this economy, because we all know that Joe Biden has utterly destroyed this economy. You can't argue with it. And it doesn't matter if you have a budget or not, you're going to feel the strain. Cardi B is an incredibly wealthy lady, and she saw it too. And she spoke up for people who don't make as much money as she did. And for that reason, she is a mini hero to me. I know she's incredibly, really not an exemplary figure, but I do like that she speaks up for people who don't make as much as she did. We talked about Pete Buttigieg crashing air travel in the U.S. No big deal. He was great. He's a diversity hire. No worries. Oh, Joe Biden extended the COVID state of emergency, but the military, Air Force, National Guard, all those people, they all lifted their vaccine mandates. So that's good. Bad news, good news. We'll see what happens with the state of emergency going forward. And we talked about the price of eggs. That's very important. People being afraid of the sun monster, and trans people fleeing the U.S. So thank you guys all very much for joining me. I'm going to not go over tonight. Thank you all for chatting at me. I appreciate it. You guys are a great bunch. I will see you guys all tomorrow. Same time, same place, same cool music right before the show. And until next time, bye guys.